Can everybody hear me? Yes. Great. I don't know if it's great or not, but I hope you can. My name is Stephen Nasser. My wife, Francoise Nasser. We have been traveling and invited all over the world, I should say. We have been in Europe, in the American continent, in Mexico. Today, it is my 1086th lecture. And this year, it's my last lecture here because we are going to slow down and not going to speak much longer in California, Utah, Arizona, because age is catching up. Above me, you can see the house where I was born, in Budapest, Hungary. It used to be called the Nasser House. It was built in 1872 by my grandfather. We had a jewelry store below, and we used to live this portion of the house. I have excellent memories, my childhood, up until age 12. We were a very loving family, and that's how I want to remember it. Here I'm going to introduce you to my family. Here's my mother, Georgette, my brother, Andris, and me, Pista. Andris was 3 years older than I. Here I'm about 8, he's about 11. Here's my father, Deju. He was a well-celebrated cavalry officer in World War I. He did die before they took us away in the Holocaust of natural causes, what he suffered from the war, First World War. Here is my Aunt Bergie. Pay little attention. It's very important what has happened to her. You can see her and her baby, Peter, was my cousin. My Uncle Charles, her husband, was drafted into the Hungarian army in 1943 at the early part. We were not taken away by the Nazis till 1944. My uncle was drafted and he had to fight the Russians, and when the war was over, he returned into the Nasser house unharmed. But of course, he didn't find any of the family. 21 of us were taken away, and out of 21, I'm the only one who survived. So Uncle Charles did not know there was a Holocaust while he was fighting the Russian front. When he came back, I'm pretty sure he was advised about it. I returned back into the so-called Nasser house after liberation in 1945. It took the American and German doctors at liberation over a couple of months before they were able to save my life and put me together. At liberation, according to the doctors, what they told me, I weighed 72 pounds. I could not even walk. I was very weak, skin and bones. My regular weight was about 138, 140. After my return to Budapest, and I met my Uncle Charles, he was very happy to see me. But then he asked, Pista, please tell me, what happened to my baby and my wife? You were together, weren't you? I looked in his eyes and I said, yes, Uncle Charles, that is true. Unfortunately, when we were taken away to Auschwitz, we were separated. And I do not know what happened to your baby and your wife. I don't believe you should expect them coming back, because just about all people were killed. That was a big lie what I told my uncle, because I did know what happened to little Peter and his wife Bergie. They were massacred in front of my eyes, only approximately 6-7 feet away. I refused to tell him because I believed it's bad enough he has lost his family also, but I didn't want him to suffer through the tremendous mental experience of what has happened to his family. I did write a diary back in the camp when I was age 13. The diary looked very much like this, written on cement paper bags. I will explain you a little bit later how I wrote the diary and what it meant. I didn't tell my uncle what has happened to his beloved ones until he passed away in 1996. I refused to publish my diary during that time, so he shouldn't learn the factual effects what happened to his wife and baby. In 1996, after he passed away, finally I did try to publish the diary. That is the reason the book was delayed by 50 years. It was my choice. Here you can see much better times. My beloved brother, Andrish. That's him. He had blondish hair, beautiful piercing blue eyes. I had jet black hair, brown eyes. And these are the fish we caught. I'm sorry, I can't remember their name. Here you can see me again. That was back in 1942 at the Scouts. I believed in scouting. That is me, smiling here. My brother was unfortunately off camera. He was about here. He was one of the tallest one. We believed in scouting until the Nazis destroyed scouting in Hungary also in 1944. Here is a Star of David, a yellow star. This particular one was made in Germany, called Jude, Jew. Us Jews, we had to wear a yellow star. Whenever we left the house, we had to have that star on our lapel. When we went to school, unfortunately, we had some bullies. Not everyone, but even a few was too many. They made our life miserable. They called us dirty Jew, Jew pig, pushed us around. I was a fairly strong young guy for my age. I tried to defend myself. Whenever my brother Andrish was around, they didn't dare touch me. He was a well-respected soccer star, and if he had to, he knew how to use his fist. He had respect, but still some bullies. Talking about bullies, who were the greatest bullies in history? The Nazis. The Nazi bullies killed 11 million people. Here you can see it on the back of my shirt, 11 million. 6 million were Jews, 5 million non-Jews. They were all massacred by these Nazi bullies. It's quite possible we might have bullies around here, I do not know. But if we have any bullies here, I have to tell you, you basically are good people, but maybe you are misled. Listen to your teacher, listen to your parents, and listen to your conscience. When you pick up other people and you're bullying them, either cyberbully or physical bully, That's a crime. You make them lose their grade, so will you, because you're so interested in having fun on the expense of other innocent people. Do you know that bullies actually could be killers? Google in and take a look how many innocent students here of our United States committed suicide. That is not fun when somebody loses their life. Can you imagine how their family feels? And I'm pretty sure you don't want to be responsible like that. You would be much better off. Pay respect to yourself. If you do that, other people will respect you. Instead of bullying, try to study harder, because that way eventually society going to respect you. Think about it. If you're going down the wrong road, it's simple. Take the other road, the high road, which leads you to prosperity, freedom, and self-respect. That's your choice entirely. When my brother died in my arms, I promised him. He was reading my book, my diary, and he asked me, Pishta, promise me you are going to share with the world what you write in the diary, and also, whatever you realize or not, we lost our family. We are orphans. At that time, I was only age 13, but it struck me hard. Oh my God, he's right. I'm an orphan, even if I survive. So I kept my word. What am I doing today? Keeping my promise to Andris. Speaking to you and passing on what I thought and he thought was right. Family value and freedom is very important. Hopefully, all of you have your family. Even if you have come from a broken home, you still have shelter above your head, or you still have people who care for you. Look at me. I represent many other survivors. Look in my eyes. If you look in my eyes deeply, you can see probably the love what I had for my brother and my family. I haven't got them anymore. I lost them because of bullies. Do you know how much of my life I would give if I could hug my mother, my brother, my father again? I would get half my life. Unfortunately, it doesn't work that way. I lost them. But you people, you still have your family. Think about it. How fortunate you are. You have your family. And that's what I'm trying to say. Respect your family. When you go home, try to do something nice what your parents or the people who care for you would appreciate. Every family needs a hero. I would challenge you, be a hero. It's for you to choose. What I'm asking you to do, when you go home, look at your loved ones or people who care for you. Put your arms around. Look them in the eyes and tell them, Mom, Dad, whoever, I love you. You know something? Love is much stronger than hate. They will appreciate it. That would be one of the greatest presents you can give them. And if you have enough courage, I would ask you, give them a second hug. And if they look at you and say, Hey, wait a second, what's going on? 2 hugs in one day? You can tell them, by the way, the second hug is for Mr. Nasser, because he hasn't got a chance to hug his family. Thank you very much for your understanding. By the way, you can see this shirt on me says never again 11 million. Quite a few years back, I came here to Faiss High School, and to my surprise, there were 400 students lined up. Honor students in the front wore these shirts. And I remember looking at it, oh my God, where did you get these shirts from? Then they said the principal arranged. They created that shirt in the honor of having you here, and they give me shirts. And ever since, my wife and I, we wear these shirts. Thank you for your school and to the principal. I will never forget. Afterwards, from school, when the Nazis came in, they took us into boxcars, just like what you see. Here is an actual picture of the Hungarian Jews being herded away in cattle cars, approximately 80 people to one cattle car. As we entered into the cattle car, the last 2 persons were given a metal bucket about this size. One bucket was full of water, the other bucket was empty for human waste, sewage. We took these buckets, the last 2 people, and about 80 of us crammed into a boxcar. Can you imagine just about the amount of people we have here? We were all crammed in there. When the doors closed, here was a file photo. You can see the people trying to smell some fresh air. Why, what was wrong with the air inside the cattle car? 80 people closed in. Can you imagine body odor? People had to go potty. And we had one metal bucket. That metal bucket filled up very, very quickly. By the shaking of the rickety train, it spilled all over. We tried to help ourselves. We took the full bucket and we gave it to the people near the opening. And we said, you have fresh air. Try to empty the bucket out. They tried. They couldn't really put the bucket through the opening because of the barbed wire, and also the air pressure forced the sewage back in their face. It took approximately 4 or 5 days before we arrived to Auschwitz. Every day the train stopped, they give us fresh water, they give us just enough food to survive, but nobody would empty the bucket. That was our punishment. Towards the end of our journey, everything was full of sewage, slime all over the floor. It was awful. Just like sitting in a toilet, in a sewage-filled toilet. But at least we had our life. When we arrived, that's what we seen, Auschwitz-Birkenau. You can see the administration building. You can see the opening where the train came through, and on the tracks, they discharge the human cargo. When they opened our doors, slid our doors open the first time, I have seen this picture. actually this site. You can see the barbed wires. They were highly electrified, I should say. Anybody touching them would be electrocuted. We were told in between they were mines. When the door slid open, I tried to stand up and take a deep breath of fresh air. I did. It was awful. The air smelled so foul, I had to back in to the sewage-ridden car. Why? I explained to you. Here you can see an actual picture when we disembarked. You can see the crowd of people milling around the train where we got up from. Here you can see some green, grayish cloud. You see Nazi bully officers. They always dressed well. This is Wehrmacht, which is a volunteer or drafted German army man. And here, Jewish people in striped uniform. Apparently, they were in the commando helping to keep the crowd. What were these gray, greenish smog covering over Auschwitz? After we arrived, we got selected, the weak ones, the young ones, the old ones, the lame ones. They went into one line. They never knew, but they took them into a gas chamber. In the gas chamber, they were killed, and their remains cremated. But the gas chamber killed so many people, the crematorium couldn't keep up with it. All these thousands of extra bodies, the Nazis burned over a bonfire, burning human flesh. Smells awful. That's what was covering all over Auschwitz, and that's what we smelled. Here you can see unsuspecting people marching towards the gas chamber. They were told they were going into the cleansing facility, showers. They didn't know they were going to their death. They had to undress. All their clothing was taken, all the thousands of shoes. These are suitcases about this size. We were able to take a suitcase from our hometown, but when we got to Auschwitz, of course, they took them away. They confiscated. Thousands of glasses. What happened to the people who used to wear them? They went up in smoke, way up to heaven. Yes, these are hair locks, shaved off from ladies. The good ones, we were told they save for hair pieces, for wigs, and we were also told the remaining hair, which were tremendous amount, were used by German mattress factories to stuff mattresses and used that for child's plush toys to stuff them. Here you can see artificial limbs. People did not need them anymore, where they went. Here is an actual gas chamber. This gas chamber was flooded with filth. Here's the metal door where the people came through. And they were told, soon as the door closed, in fact, Nazi army barracks. But they figured using it in large dose, eventually it will kill people. That was true. Unfortunately, the gas wasn't strong enough. It didn't kill people immediately. They had to suffer before they suffocated. Here's another picture that's also from a gas chamber. It's a close-up. Try to imagine. You are standing there. It's very hard to breathe. You're suffocating. You want to escape. You want fresh air to survive. People went to the wall, and you see the finger marks of they tried to scratch their way out through the cement. These were tall people, shorter people, and thousands of other marks at lower level. They were young kids. This particular photograph speaks more than evidence during the Nuremberg trial. They put their body into crematoriums, and that's what I talked about. The excess bodies were burnt in bonfire, which smelled to high heaven. In the meantime, back at the train, my brother and I, we were standing at the platform when we were ordered to get off the train, and we did. But before we did, Andris looked out and he said to me excitedly, "Pishta, look over there. It looks like Mom and Bougie, little Peter." And he was right. We pushed our way through the crowd. We did join Mom and Bougie. Little Peter was a toddler. He was about 15 months old. He was hanging on to Mother's fingers. We were very happy to see each other, but my aunt, she was petrified. She said, "If the Nazis think I'm going to separate from my baby, I'm going to fight for his and my life." We tried to encourage her, give her hope, and we told her, "And Bougie, apparently we're going to be here for a long time, waiting for inspection. But when inspection comes, why don't you pick up little Peter, hold him in your arms, and pretend you are breastfeeding him?" She thought it was a good idea. This was the situation. My aunt, with baby Peter in her arm, standing in front of me. I was behind her. Then my mom and Andris. Mother was between us. And this is what I saw. Inspection started, and one Nazi bully rushed over to my aunt to grab the baby from her arm. She wouldn't let him go. The Nazi pulled, Mother held him back. Can you imagine that 15-year-old youngster? He was already scared and crying. By now he was screaming his lungs out. He was being torn apart. The Nazi was stronger. Eventually, he got the baby. He put the baby on his shoulder. He was screaming and crying, and he started to walk away with the baby. My aunt could not move because a Nazi was holding her from behind, restraining her to go after the baby. But she put up a death struggle. Finally, she was able to get away from the Nazi's grip. She ran after the one carrying the screaming baby. This Nazi, as he was carrying the baby, he heard the commotion. He stopped for a second and he just turned back. He was face to face with my aunt. My aunt took her sharp fingernails, attacked his face, made a bloody mess of his face. The blood splat on the innocent child also. But in a split second, the Nazi whose grip she got away from, he was right behind her. He took his revolver. He didn't shoot. There were crowds of people. He took the revolver by the muzzle and with the butt struck my hand so hard, the back of the skull, it cracked open. She fell to the ground. I thought she was dead. I hope she was dead, that she didn't see what happened afterwards. The Nazi with the bleeding face rushed over to the boxcar where we disembarked from. He threw the baby up in the air. He caught the baby by the feet, put baby's body behind his shoulder, and he swung his body, his head crushed right against the wagon wheel. It was awful. I can never forget it. That's why probably you can realize when my uncle asked, Pishta, what happened to my baby and my wife? Immediately I said, Uncle Charles, I'm sorry, I do not know. That was a big lie, but I'm glad he didn't learn the circumstances. After the murder of the baby and my aunt, we were dumbfounded. Andris and I still remember we were dry heaving from the scene. We don't know how much time passed by. We could not see mother anymore. Apparently, we were already selected to work because we were strong enough, and the Nazis ordered us to get undressed, form a line, and go through inspection. We had to follow instructions because we wanted to survive. I went into my pocket, and from my pocket, I pulled out a little pocket knife. It was the same color and looked the same way. As a scout, I always carried a small knife with me. I put that knife into my fist, and I was determined to take it with me into camp. What for? I didn't know. I was 13, very determined, and I wanted to have it. When we went through the lines, they clipped our hair. We were all naked, clipped our pubic hair, and we had to form a long line. My brother was behind me. I wanted to talk to him, so did he, but we chose not to, because we noticed people who were talking to each other. The Nazis grabbed them from the line, and they never returned alive. So we followed instructions. What I figured, because I saw the inspectors way ahead, and it looked like what I could see, there was a metal bucket or some kind of bucket front of them. I couldn't see clearly, and occasionally they're throwing some things in it. What I figured, if I take that little knife and put that knife into my mouth, under my tongue, that way the Nazis will never find it, and I should be able to take it away, take it inside, hidden under my tongue. It didn't work. Because when I got much closer, I realized the Nazis, they took everyone being inspected, ordered them to open their mouth. The ones who didn't want to, they squeezed their mouth and they did open it. So I knew the knife would not be safe there. Now I had a choice. Either drop the knife and be safe. I decided to keep the knife. And this is what I decided. I took the knife, I put a lot of sputum on it, I spat on it. It was dripping wet. Now we were undressed, naked. I spread my leg a little bit, and slowly I put the knife behind me, and I shoved it up where the sun did not shine. Yes, I was able to take that knife with me. I didn't realize at that time, because of this maneuver, I would be able to write my diary. Had no connection. And then, to my amazement, when we got closer, it's not just that they make people open their mouth. Those people coming from the old country, most of the dental work those days used to be made of solid gold. When they saw the shiny gold in the mouth, they had a plier, put it in their mouth, yanked the gold out, and threw the bloody mess into the bucket. God knows how many buckets they collected for their treasury. I have no idea. Eventually, we did go into the showers, not into the gas chamber, and in the shower, we got cleaned. Then afterwards, we got the striped uniforms. And that was what we had to keep to follow. In Auschwitz, we only stayed approximately maybe 1 day, 2 days the maximum. And we were selected, not all of us, a commando of 800 people. We were selected to go to another concentration camp near Dachau, where the Nazis built a huge compound, underground compound, tried to manufacture planes, ammunition, rockets, because most of their facilities were bombed to the core, all the way to the ground. In Auschwitz, my brother and I, we were not tattooed. There were some people who were there longer, they were tattooed. And in Mühldorf, where we got shipped to, near Dachau, there were no tattooing, no gas chamber, except hard labor, very little food, and to most people, death waited. Here is the construction before we got to Dachau. You can see it's huge. According to the website where this picture came from, it was about 425 feet long, a huge archway. It's a double-story underground. Trains run in there, and it was bomb-proof. Even the Allies couldn't bomb it. They could bomb it, but they could not penetrate it. Here's the actual picture. At the thinnest point on top, it was 15 feet thick, rebarbs, trains running underneath. All around, thousands and thousands of broken cement bags. And the first day at work, we were able to take cement bags with us under our arms, empty of course. And the Nazis knew we were going to make some clothing, sweaters and such, which we did. But with my brother's help, I was able to make a diary, a journal, just like this. Here it is. This written in English contract cement paper because my original diary looked exactly the same, got lost at liberation. This particular journal was created for me in St. George, Utah. They have given it to me, sent it to me, and ever since I take it with me because my original journal looked very much similar to it. Back in the barracks, this picture was taken by Nazis of some of our prisoners in Mühldorf, where I was incarcerated. My brother and I, we were in a couple of upper bunk beds. And as I returned with many others with cement paper bag from the workplace, walk about 3 miles back into the compound, everybody was carrying cement papers, except some people noticed I had a journal just like this. They were curious. Pishta, what are you going to do with that? I know what we're going to do with the others, making clothes and coverings and such. I said, well, I love to draw. Whenever I have a chance to get a pencil, I will going to start drawing. They shrugged their shoulder, they couldn't care less. I took this diary, this cement journal, put it behind the kick plate underneath the straw, which was our mattress, and went to work that way. On the way to work, we had to march about close to 3 miles, between 2 and 3 miles, through some beautiful Bavarian forest. And while we were walking, I bent down and I picked out a couple of small sandstone pieces. And I felt very lucky. I put it in my pocket, and Andris looked at me, Pishta, what's wrong with you? It's hard enough for us to walk, and you putting stones in your pocket? I explained him what was my plan. He wasn't laughing at me anymore. And what happened after I got back into the barracks, I took this sandstone, and with my little knife, I started to carve, scratch and carve. And I was able to do a dog's head. It came out okay, nothing special. Then I went to the other one and I carved a horse's head. Now that carving came out beautiful. I couldn't believe I'd done it. And Andris knew about my plan. I took that horse's head to work with me. And one of my supervisors, his name was Herr Hoffmann. He was not an SS bully. He was also a Nazi, a Wehrmacht, a volunteer soldier or so. But anyway, he was very strict, but he never hurt us. And lunchtime came, and I showed him that little horse's head. And I remember he said, my God, son, that looks beautiful. Where did you find it? I was very proud of it. Sir, I didn't find it, I carved it. You mean you carved this? I said, yes. Then he thought, he asked me, could you carve a few more of these trinkets later on? I said, yes. Then he asked me, can I have this? I said, it's yours. Then with a low smirk on his face, what would you like for it? Here was my opportunity. Sir, if you could give me a little extra food so I can share with my brother, and a couple of pencils. As soon as he heard a couple of pencils, his attitude changed. Wait a second. You think you are back in school playing with paper and pencil? You are here to work, do serious work. You don't need to fool around. I said, sir, I'm doing my job. And as you can see, I even had time to carve this. Then he looked at it. Okay, So you are a little artist. I tell you what, I give you a little extra food and you can have a couple of pencils. I imagine my eyes must have lit up. I took the pencils, I got back into the barracks, I sharpened the pencil, and my brother knew what I was going to do. He used to love to watch me drawing. He loved the way I draw. But I told him, Andris, don't even watch me because you will interfere. I'm not going to draw nice pictures. I'm going to draw some stupid lines. So for the head, I drew a round circle or oval, then a line for the body. It was ridiculous. But what I have done, I took this empty diary from under my straw in the bunk bed, then front of the barracks, right at the entrance, there was a little wall space. I sat on the floor at the wall space, I opened the empty journal, and I started to draw pictures in there. People were curious after work. They came by and looked over, what you doing, Pishta? Just drawing. Let me see it. So I showed them a page, 2 pages. Most of them made the remarks, you call these drawings? They crummy. I said, I enjoy it, I don't care. Well, if you don't want to watch it, you don't have to. And I kept on drawing. And I achieved what I wanted because people did not crowd me anymore to watch my lousy drawing. And when I had the area clear, I went underneath the pictures or the pages of drawing, and I started to write my diary, word by word, line by line, page by page. When I saw anybody else approaching, it was simple. I went back with the drawing picture on top of the diary, and they convinced. That's all what I'm doing, some crummy drawing. That's how I was able to finish my diary. The barrack commander, he was also a Hungarian Jew. He was in charge. He couldn't care about much of what's happening. The only thing what he cared, if somebody was sick, couldn't eat, he collected his portion and he had extra food, and he didn't have to go to work. Finally, one morning, when the whistle blew, every morning the whistle blew, we had to get dressed, and very early, it was still dark, have to line up outside. And this morning the whistle blew, and Andris, my brother, couldn't get up. I told him, Andris, you have to get up. He couldn't. I have to leave him. When I returned from work the end of the night, exhausted, look for Andris. Andris disappeared. I asked the barrack commander, what happened to Andris? He said, well, Andris was taken into death barracks. That was devastating. I made a plan very quickly. I was going to go to work, just like nothing happened, collect some food, put some of the food under my jacket, and save it for following Sunday, where I was going to try to find Andris. That particular Sunday was our Sunday off every 4th week. So when that Sunday arrived, and I went to that barrack, which looked very similar to what you see here, except instead of people looking still pretty well fed, here's the archive photo. That's the way we looked. These people weighed between 70 to 80 pounds. When the American and German doctors liberated me, they told me I weighed 72 pounds. So I was looking for my brother. I went through the barracks, and finally towards the end, in one bunk bed, I said, Nasser, are you here? There were two people in one bunk bed, two of the skinny people, and one of them started to raise very slowly, eyes closed. Then finally he opened his eyes, and I realized it was Andres. He burst out, "God, thank you. I knew Pishta going to come before I die. Andres, you're not going to die. I'm here to rescue you." And I went beside my brother. I put my arm underneath his head, looked into his beautiful blue eyes, and I said, "Andres, you'll be okay. I have some food for you. I can hear the guns are getting closer. We'll be liberated soon." Unfortunately, it didn't happen. Andres had his beautiful blue eyes open, piercing blue eyes. Then I took the food and put it on his chest. Then he said to me, with his face turning sour, "My little brother, look under my blanket." I opened the blanket, looked underneath, found some pieces of dry food what he could not eat anymore. He was finished. He could not survive. I looked back and begged him, "Andres, please open your eyes, blink at me." Andres couldn't. Andres died right in my arms. I was devastated. I had to go back to the barracks, and the next few days we had to go to work until one day the whistle didn't blow and we realized the Nazis abandoned camp, except a few Wehrmacht. They were watching us with a rifle. Apparently the Wehrmacht got orders from the Nazis because the Nazis fled like rats running. And they ordered some of these Germans, take these people, put them on boxcars, take them up to Bavarian Alps for execution. Here is an actual picture. Liberation, April 30, 1945. The Wehrmacht put us on trains, but instead of taking us for execution, they took the train slowly, hopefully the Americans going to capture us and liberate us. That's what happened. When the liberation occurred, for 64 some odd people, it was a little too late, they were dead. And personally, I believe that is my head here. I was unconscious in a coma for 6-7 days. When I woke up, I was in this particular hospital at Seasalt. And that's when they put me together. That's when the doctors told me I weighed 72 pounds. This is the German artist who created this memorial where our train was liberated. We got flown back with Francois April 30, 1995. This is the book what I have written, which came from my diary. A story kept secret over 50 years, my brother's voice. This is the same book in German. They teach it in German schools, even today. I did get a letter because I met her personally, the German Chancellor, Dr. Angela Merkel. And she told me, "Mr. Nasser, dear Pishta, your mom was my best friend. She died in my arms, Bergen-Belsen. 3 weeks after liberation, her body was put into body chamber. I do have a picture of Bergen-Belsen body chamber, and every time I look at it, I cannot help asking the question, "Mom, are you one of them?" That's where my mother finished. Then I did go to Normandy after my daughter's death. We laid flowers to the American soldiers. This is the house today. They still call it the Nasser house, even though it doesn't belong to us. These plaques were laid front of the Nasser house in 2012, September 28th, and it's there still in the sidewalk. One is for my dad, one is for my mom, and Bergie, little Peter, my brother, one is for me. They all have date of death, except me. I'm here, I'm not a ghost. I'm not ready to go yet, but eventually I will join my family too. Here is Not Yet Pishta. That's a stage play I've written. It was world premiere here in Las Vegas at Durango High School. There were 4 performances. Here is another book which I wrote by request, follow-up, Journey to Freedom. People who wanted to know what happened after the concentration camp. And here we come to an end. I will ask all of you, would you please rise, stand up. It's going to be a little memorial. And if you mind, just hold hand, create a chain, very important to me. I'm going to go there and break into your lines. If you look up, it says, remember, freedom is not free. That is very true. I remember 470,000 American soldiers who gave their life for our freedom. I remember 11 million innocent civilians who were killed by the Nazis. And I cannot remember, I mustn't forget people in Korea, Vietnam, and the skirmishes where they fought to defend our freedom. And we cannot forget the rest of the world. Darfur, Somalia, Libya, Lebanon, and all the places where our soldiers died to defend our freedom. In their memory, please repeat after me. Never again.
Never again.
Thank you very much. God bless America, and God bless you all. Thank you.